So I have not even started the video yet, but I have to warn you of impending dryness. If you are of the vagina persuasion, you will most likely immediately get chapped. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. We're all gonna have to moisturize. So yeah, but this is Ben Shapiro. Marxism can't work in America. Let's go.
When you have high levels of societal income mobility, when you can be born in America and you can become very, very wealthy, when you can be a middle-class person and you can get rich, very difficult to make the case that the system is stacked against you.
Yeah, but how many people do that these days? Because the system is stacked against us, Ben, and it has been since fucking Reagan. You know, that guy that you fucking love and worship, but whatever, it's fine.
So the left had to come up with another way to ram their cultural Marxism through. And what they came up with was race. Because while the United States historically has not had massive class distinctions that are hard and fast, it has had race distinctions that were hard and fast.
That's true. I would argue that there are absolutely class distinctions, but they're systemic ones. Things like how we fund our schools. You know, if you live in a poor neighborhood, thus of a lower class in society, your children will have access to substandard education. That's pretty clear, Ben. Pretty clear. But anyway.
For the vast majority of America's lifetime, right? Until the 1960s. So from 1776 to the 1960s, you had hard and fast racial distinctions in law in many parts of the country.
Yeah, that was bad.
And that was a serious problem. So what the Marxists did is they glommed onto this and they said, aha, what we need to do is make Americans understand that the systems are racist and you need to tear down the systems so you can have essentially racial mobility.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. If we can prove that there is a systemic impact along racial lines, then we should probably do something about it.
That is the only way to do this. So that was the argument that was made by critical race theory. So critical race theory arrives in the 1960s. Stokely Carmichael, who's then the head of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, he makes the argument on the heels of the Civil Rights Act of 1965, right? The first real movement in America to undercut this argument. Yeah. Because the argument is now, okay, we're going to get rid of those race distinctions in federal law. So we've reached the end of the road, right? I mean, we've now gotten rid of any excuse you have for some sort of revolution based on class. Stokely Carmichael says, no, that's not good enough. The systems are already stacked based on class. It's not that the systems are fair, but they were excluding people. And so if you include the people in the systems, now things are good. The entire system is racist and bad.
I mean, if you can prove that it is, then it is. What's the problem with that? Like, if somebody says, hey, I believe that if we look along these lines, we can see a very clear line of discrimination, either by class or by race, then that's a problem. And then we should maybe do something about it. What's wrong with that? What could anybody possibly have? What could anybody possibly have any issue with? And oh yeah, as thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Yeah. Here, we're because as he's we have amazing economic mobility. All right, global social mobility index. Where are we? See, Denmark, Norway, Finland, Sweden. Oh, all these socialist countries. Oh, Jesus. And, 27. We're 27th. 27th, Ben. 27th. Okay? I'm just, listen, it's a thing that maybe we should pay attention to.
And we can tell because there's inequality in outcome. So any system that has an inequality, like we can look at the systems, we can see that the system itself says you can't be discriminatory. That's not enough. Right. Because so long as there's an inequality of outcome, this means that the system is stacked against you. This is the notion of critical race theory. Yeah. So Stokely Carmichael's intellectual heirs launched the actual critical race theory project in the late 70s, early 80s. I've talked about this before. Some of the expositors, people like Richard Delgado and Gene Stefanchik, they set out the basic principles of critical race theory. First, that racism is ordinary, not aberrational. True. It's just present in American society. It's everywhere.
It's present in humans. I would argue that racism is biological. That it's that there is a component within us that makes us want to organize into groups, identify outlying patterns or appearances, and compete. We see this in animals all the fucking time. I think it's programmed into us by nature. Now, it's great that we are evolved enough that we can move beyond those types of impulses, and we should. But like Ben's gonna want to try and make this argument of like the altruistic, non-racist human, and I think that's ridiculous.
The ordinary, it's not that there's a bad guy over there who's racist, so we tell him to stop being racist. No, everyone is racist. And also that the system of, quote, white over color ascendancy serves important purposes, both psychic and material. So the system is stacked because white people want it to be stacked. And what this means...
I mean, I would say, like, if you took any other racialized group and swapped white people in America out with that group, and they were, you know, traditionally, like, the ones in power and had that long history, it would probably be the same exact fucking thing. But Ben just wants to say, white. That's why that's why I hate the term whiteness. I hate the term whiteness because it describes a behavior that really could be anybody if they were in the dominant group. And it automatically makes people who would be naive and easily swayed by Ben Shapiro into thinking that, like, it's a racist thing against white people, which it's not supposed to be, you know? So, yeah.
Is that even parts of the system that seem like they are cutting against racism, they're actually just cover for racism. So the Civil Rights Act itself is cover for deeper underlying racism.
Nah, that's not true. No. Even Martin Luther King himself, he said that it did not go far enough. Not that it's cover for. I don't think anybody's ever said that the fucking civil rights movement was cover for racism. People just say it didn't do enough. But it's good that it happened.
Attempts to fight back against racism in law, that's just perpetuating the racist system. In order to fix this, of course, what you need is exactly what the Frankfurt School said, right? In order to fix this, what you need is to destroy all the systems. Capitalism is a racist system, not a...
The way it's utilized these days, sure. I mean, at its basic core concept, it doesn't have to be. Is it often? Yeah.
classist system, a racist system. So Derek Bell, who was very warm with Barack Obama back in the day, he wrote, quote, "The whole liberal worldview of private rights and public sovereignty mediated by the rule of law needs to be exploded. A worldview premised upon the public and private spheres is an attractive mirage that masks the reality of economic and political power."
Okay.
So this led Bell to the peculiar conclusion that, again, even the laws that protect black people are specifically designed in order to cover for a system that hurts black people.
I don't think that's what he said, but I also never read his stuff, so I can't really argue against it one way or the other. Yeah, our thank you very much, Shaggy, for running that poll. The chat has democratically decided that Jordan Peterson is more insufferable than Ben Shapiro. But yeah, I think we should run the next one, see if Jordan Peterson or Steven Crowder is more insufferable. That's a good one. Let's do that one next.
Bell actually wrote a short story in 1992 saying that white Americans would sell black Americans to space aliens if they could alleviate the national debt. And he said in 1992, right, not in 1970.
So that's his opinion. Who cares?
That black Americans were more oppressed than at any time since the end of slavery. So you have to understand that this is what lies at the root of the Joe Biden equity agenda.
Look, okay, it depends on how you're thinking of it. There are now, if I'm not mistaken, let's look at this. Prison. Let's see. Trying to get some statistics. I'm curious if we look at our prisons, because the United States of America has way, 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 way more prisoners than any other fucking country in the world, which is it's a fucking embarrassment. Vastly a huge embarrassment. I'm kind of curious if we have more black people incarcerated in the United States than we did slaves at the height of slavery. I'm curious about that. I don't know. Maybe if somebody in the chat actually gets a good link for that for me, we got to keep moving on this video. But I would, if that is the case, I could see maybe that argument having some water, holding some water. Reconstruction was a fucking terrible time. Terrible, terrible time. And also, like, I'm always kind of uncomfortable with the idea of comparing which was worse, as if that's supposed to lend weight to the current conversation, you know? So I don't know.
Equity is not the same as equality. Equality suggests that everybody should be treated the same under the law. Equity suggests that the systems are so corrupt that they have to be completely remade by people like Joe Biden, elderly white gentlemen. They need to be completely remade, and they need to be remade so that the results are equal. We'll get to more on critical race theory and Biden administration's embrace of it in just 1 second. First, my kids are getting ready for subscription service earlier this year. Good Ranch, possible.
I'm gonna skip past your bullshit ad read. No.
So he announced.
All right. Look, so, okay. I get what he's trying to say in this, but I've talked about this before. Equality and equity are not completely separate, all right? Equality under the law does not necessarily mean equality in society. It just don't. And for that to be the case, to make sure that we all have the same starting point, would require, to some degree, a type of embracing equity. It would. It just would. And then, sure, like everything's based on your own performance and everything. But the simple fact of the matter that we have such grotesquely different scales of quality of school based on whether or not you live in a rich area versus a poor area pretty much demolishes the whole idea of just natural equality because you have equality under the law, which we also don't even have that either. So it's just, it's just one of those things.
At the very beginning of his administration, like right away on his first day in office, he signs an executive order, quote, advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities throughout the federal government. And here's what Joe Biden had to say.
When I became president, one of the first things I did, I signed an executive order to advance equality and racial justice throughout our federal policies and all our institutions. That's because delivering the promise of America is not the work of one department. It has to be the business of the whole of the federal government. The bottom line, advancing equity is not a one-year project. It's a generational commitment.
Okay.
These plans are an important step forward, reflecting the Biden-Harris administration's work to make the promise of America real for every American. And I mean every American.
So what does that mean? What does that mean? So here is what his executive
Whew, boy. All right. Interesting.
order says, quote, this is the White House. The president's order emphasized the enormous human cost of systemic racism. Systemic racism is exactly the sort of language used by CRT. Persistent poverty and other disparities, and directed the federal government to advance an ambitious whole-of-government equity agenda that matches the scale of the challenges we face as a country.
Okay.
Again, whenever they talk about disparities, understand they're not talking about one person is richer and one person is poorer because they made different decisions and therefore they have different outcomes. And that's what they mean is that no matter what decisions you made, any disparity is evidence of discrimination. According to the White House,
that's not what they mean. That is not what they mean. Not at all. And like, look, this is such a bullshit way to like brush past this whole issue. It's so sneaky and snaky. So Ben wants you to think that there is this overarching government plan in which they're gonna go and they're gonna find anybody who's poor and be like, hey, we don't care if you're on meth or a ex-convict. We're just gonna give you a shit ton of money. I'm surprised he didn't bring up like reparations as some sort of like racially motivated one. Maybe he's like trying to skirt things a little bit safer today. The government having a big plan like that is never going to individually look at everybody. They're going to look at status. They're going to look at what their paycheck is versus like how much they have to pay for their bills or whatever. Looking into improving areas where they can have better jobs and cleaner living and things like that. It's just so stupid. It's so stupid and it's so obvious. And he has to conflate all this shit and make it seem like a bigger problem so he can push this Marxism conspiracy, which is bullshit. Joe Biden is nowhere close to a fucking Marxist. Not even fucking close. Holy shit. Do you even know? Taking 5 minutes to learn anything about Joe Biden, and you'll know, like, he is a neo-corporatist fucking, capitalist Democrat. And he's just the same as all the rest of them.
over 90 federal agencies across the federal government, including all cabinet-level agencies, as well as over 50 independent agencies mobilized quickly and effectively to implement the executive order. Agencies conducted equity assessments of 3 to 5 of their agencies' high-impact services for the American people to uncover where systemic barriers to access may exist.
Okay, that's cool. Great.
And, of course, he included in this rubric not just Black Americans, he included in this rubric all intersectional identities. Quote,
Okay.
these plans are an important step forward, reflecting the Biden-Harris administration work to make the promise of America real for every American, including communities of color, tribal communities, rural communities, LGBTQI plus divided by sign, minus sign, happy face emoji, people with disabilities, women and girls, and communities impacted by persistent poverty.
Okay, good. So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Doesn't that sound great? That sounds cool. Like that also helps like rural white people that are poor as fuck too. Like it's gonna help everybody. Everybody who's like struggling. Wait. How is that a bad thing? I don't fucking get this. I don't understand.
They are part of a broader equity agenda, which also includes implementing the first ever national strategy on gender equity and equality. Gender equity, we'll get to that in just one second because it's, again, part and parcel of critical theory. Working to ensure the federal government is a model for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the workplace, advancing LGBTQ plus I divided by sign civil rights. In releasing these action plans across the interagency, as well as snapshots of the largest agency's plans, the administration commits to deepening the conversation with communities, advocates, and all stakeholders.
Yeah, sounds great.
And
what's the fucking problem? Why is that a problem? Why does that make Benjamin here so pissed off? Why does that make him so angry? That sounds awesome. There are people in our society, the most powerful country on the planet, that aren't having a good time. And they're struggling more than other people. So we're going to try and make it so they don't. What's the problem?
What this means is that they're going to promote, for example, crackdowns on the police by the Department of Justice.
Fuck yeah. Good. Oversight. Citizen, I would rather it be citizen oversight, empowered by, local governments and shit. But at least that's something.
This means, for example, that they are going to pursue quote-unquote economic justice, which is economic redistributionism.
Cool.
That they are going to actively discriminate in government jobs between members of different races. That they're going to support educational.
What does it say that?
Affirmative action programs.
Okay.
Enforce the teaching of critical race theory in public schools if they can. And all the most divisive racial components of President Biden's agenda have very, very deep roots.
Oh, okay.
And part of this is strategic because the Democratic Party has been under the severe misimpression since 2012 when Barack Obama defeated Mitt Romney despite losing about 3 million votes from 2008. They're under the misimpression that the future Democratic coalition is an intersectional coalition of white college-educated women and minority groups. Now, what they're learning is that a lot of minorities are not particularly interested in this very racialized pursuit of American politics.
I don't know about that, Benjamin. You just saying a thing doesn't necessarily make it true.
But this is what they're rooting for. And they're not particularly shy about this. About 3 weeks after the 2020 election.
No, fuck it. I'm just going to stop it there. Listen, I look, you could have made that argument that maybe the push for like a more inclusive sort of thing was cringe back in like 2015, 2016, something like that. But these days, people are usually kind of pretty cool with it. And even if they're not, they're going to be pretty fucking turned off by some of the shit that's going down on the other side, whether they want to go for blue or for red. Looking towards the red, I don't know if Ben Shapiro has noticed this, but his entire political party is in flames right now. Constant amounts of controversy, people rubbing shoulders with fucking open neo-Nazis and shit. People trying to push Christian nationalism, for fuck's sake. Real spooky shit. I think even if somebody might be like, well, I really don't like the Democrats so much because I feel like they're just kind of pushing this like race and equality thing just a little too hard. It's a little too on the nose, a little too ham-fisted. Oh, but I'm not going over there. Fuck that. I'll take the cringe. I will go with the cringe over that. So I don't really think Ben has much of a point here. And yeah, I think this is just this was a comfort video to his audience that need tucked in and their feelings validated. Yeah, that's pretty much what it was.